for whom we are also lucky and extremely lucky. So, like, AWS Community Days, all the community-led events are happening around the world by the community, but there are some, enablers, especially in AWS. And in my opinion, like maybe people can disagree, but the biggest enabler in AWS is now with us, which is like my dearest friend Farah, and she's going to talk about how communities are impacting our lives. This is yours.
Okay. Make sure we get this set up. Everybody hear me okay? Is this too loud? Okay. So hi, everybody. My name is Farah Campbell, and I'm the head of the Modern Compute community at AWS. I am really excited to be here with everybody today. I first want to say thank you so much to the organizers, to all of the sponsors. You cannot do these events without you. But also, mostly thank you to all of you for taking your Saturday to join us here at this wonderful community day. There's been a lot of great talks this morning, and we're going to talk about why I think community is so important. So I need my thing working. Oh, the clicker's not. Okay, well, I'll just do it like this. Okay, so I think I have the very best job in the world. So some people might wonder what the head of the Modern Compute community does at AWS. I get to work with community members. So I work with our heroes, I work with our user groups, I work with our community builders. But really what I do is I, help them to understand how to better, utilize AWS. I have them give feedback to our service teams, people like Massimo. I try to make sure that they have the information that they need to be successful with the communities that they are part of. But truly, I do think I have the very best job in the world. I don't have to do this because, so, to understand a little bit about my journey, I actually did not get to tech and get to my job in a very traditional way. In fact, I would say it found me. I moved to Portland, Oregon in, 2014. And there was like this big, vibrant tech ecosystem there, and I wanted so badly to be a part of it. And so I worked in healthcare prior to that, so I started to apply at every place I could think of. I curated cover letters. I think I may have applied to maybe 100 positions in the amount of year, and I got no response at all, not even one. And so I decided that I needed to do something different if I was going to be able to get a job in tech and try to figure out how to use my transferable skills. And so I started going to these tech meetups and things because then I could ask people, and maybe if I got to know somebody. And what I realized there is that tech communities ended up being like this magical place where new ideas are born, where people are coming together to solve hard problems, where people are coming together to help each other. And it really, truly changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my career. It also changed my life personally. I really considered that genuine human connections is a pillar for being good at building communities, and at each meetup and things I did, and every new ecosystem and community I was participating in, I really worked to understand what motivated people, how could I be beneficial to them. And I realized there that connecting with and to other people became one of my superpowers. And you really can see this if you look at the history of my career. So my first job I found in going to a tech meetup. I met these co-founders, and they decided to give me a chance. So I started off as an office manager at a company called Ripfog. I had no experience doing this before. From there, I met a gentleman that was working with us as a consultant, and then he offered me a job as a director of operations. And now I'm, doing payroll, paying taxes, basically keeping the lights on, all the hiring. Again, things I'd never done before, but they had trusted me based on the relationships I had built to be successful at this. And that continued on. Every single one of my jobs came from participating in these communities. And then the most notable one, I guess, would be when I was at Stackery. So this is my very first time where like I'd say I have a public-facing role. So my job at Stackery was to build the AWS relationship, to build relationships with serverless developers. This is where I first met Jan and Imra. I actually believe, we were at the very first serverless conf together. And from there, I actually ended up that, AWS offered me this job as, to work with the heroes in the community that I was already been working to build. And I say next, something awesome. So this does not mean I'm leaving. This just means whatever I do next is it's going to be awesome too. And it has to be because not much can beat what I'm currently doing today. So how many people in this room got their job from, like networking or from participating in communities? Yeah, so there's a lot of us. And I found this, I put the link down here, but 85% of jobs are filled via networking or like personal professional connections. And 79% of people believe that, networking and participating in communities is important in order to be able to find a job. And I really, really love this quote from Steve Jobs. And I think about this, as, with each new ecosystem or community I participate in, is that I'm not trying to be the successful one. I'm trying to be valuable, trying to figure out how can I be beneficial and how can I help this community. So what does community mean? Today in this room, there's a number of communities. We're all here for the AWS community. We have DevOps community folks. We just heard from Liz about Kubernetes. There's definitely a huge Kubernetes community. We have a lot of serverless enthusiasts here. That is definitely its own community. And I think community is easy to say, but what does it actually mean? Well, first and foremost, it's about people. It's not a place, it's not a building, it's not an organization. It's both a feeling and a set of relationships among people. And I think of it as like, common and unity. Connection with people reminding me that I'm not alone. Connection with people that help me to be better and that I can help them. When you meet somebody who is alone and you feel alone, now it's we. And so I think community keeps us connected, and we are definitely, we're all built to want to connect. And it's actually not us. I found this really, really interesting article, and it's actually a white paper from this researcher and teacher named Margaret Wheatley. And she describes how in nature, and even from the microbes to the most complex species, they actually are driven to connect with each other, and they support one another, and the individuals grow, and the ecosystem as a unit grows as well. So members evolve to survive, which fosters new systems. Collaboration leads to development of new talents and abilities. And we see this as when we're participating in the communities. If you're going to an AWS user group, you're definitely learning new information. You're coming here, you're learning new information. So new capabilities, they merge, and they actually help the individual and the system overall. So what are the benefits of community? So I asked Twitter, and I'm still calling it Twitter. I'm not calling it the other name. But there's a number of things that came up. So collaboration, confirmation, support, encouragement. And I really love this one from Chris Williams, who's one of the heroes. It's, that it helps him to be able to help others to find jobs. And I found that very true, it helps us to get challenges. When you're facing a challenge, somebody else in the community might have faced the same thing. And so they're able to, help you, and you can then tackle and solve problems together. So I love this. Communities act as collaborative platforms where members can share and tackle problems together. When teams collaborate effectively, they solve problems faster. They can streamline workflows. You see this a lot in open source communities. You have people coming together to improve the quality of the software that is produced, which helps us all. Okay, so these are some of the things. It is hard. It's not always easy to prioritize community. So I'm going to cover a few of them, but we have different values and beliefs. So when communities are coming together globally, not everybody is raised the same. We have different communication styles, so that those can act as barriers from and actually work against us from having an open dialogue and being able to communicate with one another. Belonging to communities requires work, and we are all part of many different communities. I can imagine the organizers and any of the volunteers that are here today, if you're participating in other communities, your time is probably spent on this community day, and so time doesn't allow for it. And then, yeah, lack of time. How many people in this room are busy on a day-to-day basis? How many mean we need more hours in the day, right? So there's a lack of time. We can't always participate in the ways that we want to because we have hectic schedules. We have families. We have friends we might want to see sometimes too. Fear of vulnerability. It's really hard to walk into a space that has 500 people when you know no one and you have, maybe you don't have a friend there. It can be really scary. It can also be really scary to walk up to somebody, that's important in the ecosystem and introduce yourself, and that can act as a barrier. And then one of the ones I don't is like in some environments, we're encouraged to be the champion, instead of like collaborating with others. You want that win. You want your name on it, and don't necessarily want to work with anybody else. But so it's hard sometimes to prioritize the well-being of the community over our own individual success. We misinterpret things through our own lens. And this is subjective on a day-to-day basis, right? So if I'm communicating with somebody, if I'm reading something online, there's a Slack message, I may have just had a bad day, and I'm not taking this very well. Maybe somebody reminds me of my ex-boyfriend, so we have our own biases that prevent us from having an open dialogue with others. But I like to think of it as like, relationships are like these tennis matches, and so like you're passing information back and forth and back and forth. But by showing a willingness to listen to others, it really helps to build and craft our own return messages. Yeah, the instinct. So sometimes we can think that, right? If I'm giving all this, I'm volunteering, we really want to see immediate returns. What am I doing this for? If I might feel like I'm being taken advantage of if I am giving a lot to a project, if I'm giving a lot to a community, and nobody's really saying anything to me. I don't see that immediate win. But there is this thing called the law of reciprocity, and so if somebody does something nice for you, you have this urge to do something nice back. I can tell you, somebody bought my coffee the other day, and I immediately had to go buy somebody else a coffee because it felt like that was the right thing to do. And the last one before we'll move on to some more fun stuff is that sometimes it's really hard to feel like you're losing yourself. So if I'm having to change my communication style, I might think that I'm giving up something of myself. But accommodating others' preferences doesn't mean that you're, abandoning your own. Simply taking the time to listen, to consider somebody else's perspective, does not mean that you are losing yourself. And everybody thinks differently. Some people want a big family. They want that white picket fence. Some people want none of that, and they just want to travel, and maybe they want to just go around in a bus, and go different places and live in, a van and check out new places. Neither is wrong, they're just different. All right, so how to grow communities. This is one of my coworkers. His name is, we call him Spot, Tom Calloway. He's really big in the open source, and he actually had this presentation that really kind of, it actually spoke to me. And he simplified things down to how to grow community in 4 easy steps. And these are oversimplified. But first, you want to create an environment where people want to be. Like today, think about how awesome this event is. I mean, this is a great event to come to, so you want to make sure you create an event. You want to encourage people to visibly participate in the community. And so at my job, I do whatever I can to bring people on stage, have people join us on AWS On Air. The key point is to bring them to, the table and make them visible and that work visible. And when other people see you helping others, become more visible in the community, they think that, it seems like a community that is welcome and that they, promote the actions of others. Creating an environment where people want to be. Okay, so having fun together is really, really important. I take a lot of time to do this. I mean, even at reInvent, you find time to actually participate and do some fun things with them. Maybe you're going out late at night. Maybe you find a Friday night show that you want to see after reInvent. I do have that with some of the community. And I have just, taking the days to go travel and see, go travel and go spend time with them. I've done this with Imra. We had a great time in Lake Como where we spent the day when we were both at the same event in Malin. But when people have fun, that becomes something memorable to them. It makes it so there's people no longer feel like strangers. I already did that one, so that's why. Okay, promoting the actions of your community to others. And this kind of is like making people visible, but I think this is also different, is you want to make sure that you're promoting the work that people do. People want to be recognized. They want to feel like what they're doing matters. And so I make sure to take a lot of time to share the community's work internally, to share their feedback. You saw that QR code that Massimo had in there, and I'll share that a little bit later. But when people are recognized, they feel appreciated. And that can go from just like promoting their blog posts, it could be amplifying their voices on social media, or it can be just, showing up at the events that they are running. And investing in your community members so they stay. Again, I said these all really overlap, but I think this is really, really important. Taking the time. I'm not a good community, I would say, strategist if I am not showing up at other places and participating in other communities. I'm not helpful if I'm not trying to understand the ecosystems that people are participating in. So coming to these community days, going to the Kubernetes, going to the side events, the KCDs, all of these are really, really important so I can better understand the needs of that community. Okay. So tips. So these are going to be tips about building relationships, or you can give me tips about how to be better in my talks, like making sure this works next time. Okay, so there we go. So active listening and be present. I think this is really, really hard. So if you're at a networking event like this, it's very, really important to focus on the person and what they're talking to you about. It's instead of just kind of like waiting for your next thing to say, you also maybe might put your phone down. I don't know if you've ever been in a conversation with somebody and kind of felt like, do they care about what I'm saying because they keep texting as we're talking? So you really want to make sure that you're an active listener and that, put your phone down so people understand. I'm not talking to you. Respect differences and welcome diversity. Be open to people with different ideas and opinions from your own. The best teams have a variety of ideas. We challenge each other. We're open to new concepts. And that's really what fosters innovation. I mean, this is really, really hard, because, there's so many things happening in the world today. And, again, everybody are coming together when you have global communities. So it's really, really important to, respect people's differences. Remember names and personal details. If you're trying to build relationships, it's nice to try to remember somebody's name, their name. When I'm at an event like this and I've met somebody, I always will go in. I have like a note in my phone, and I'll put down somebody's name, like what their name is, and maybe something that they told me, so I remember the next time that I see them. And actually, I think this is a really important. You want to make sure you're listening to what they say. If you're asking, make sure you clarify what their name is. So I was at an event, and one of my friends came up and and I introduced him, and I said, "This is Hakan," and my friend Colby's like, "Hi, hot dog, nice to meet you," and he kept calling him hot dog. again. So if you don't think you heard the name again, because I think it's very important to clarify what that person said. Listen first and be patient. This is really important. I think we all want to have like an active voice. You know, so when somebody's telling you something and it reminds you of your own experience, and so then you jump into the conversation and start taking over and talking about what you did. But really, that's not helpful if you're really trying to build relationships with people. And I think it's, you know, this is especially hard when there's like family emergencies, because we've all had these experiences that we want to share too. Be genuine. Don't try to be somebody you're not. You know, that is not, you are your best self. You don't need to pretend that you know everything. I showed up at my very first serverless event. I knew nothing. And I just asked a bunch of questions. I found people and asked them to teach me. I think the first time I was talking to Imra, I had asked him, you know, tell me what your company did, and then I'll tell you, because I couldn't tell if we did the same thing. I'm like, you tell me what you guys do, and I'll tell you if I ever heard this at our company before. So be genuine. You're your best self. Avoid assumptions and communicate clearly. It's hard sometimes when people say things, but you know, things can be misconstrued. So don't assume the worst when, you know, something is said. Clarify. You know, I think I've said this, you know, many times. We all come from different backgrounds. We communicate very differently in the States than like in Eastern Europe, right? So make sure, you know, don't assume that somebody's being negative. And if you do think they are, you can just clarify. Don't put too much pressure on the relationship. Let the relationship develop naturally. If you've reached out to somebody and they're not responding, I wouldn't ping them. Like, don't find them on every channel. This has happened to me and others, you know, many times before. But again, you don't want to put too much pressure on the relationship. You want it to evolve organically. And yeah. Remember that everybody's doing the best that they can. We are all going through things on a day-to-day basis, right? I might not have the same amount to give today that I could have yesterday. Maybe I had a family member die. You know, maybe I had maybe my sister's sick. So I think it's really, really, really important to practice empathy when you're, you know, participating in communities. You know, you were coordinating on an event and somebody fell through and didn't meet a deadline. Don't assume they just didn't care or being lazy. I mean, they could have big things going on that you're just not aware of and they don't feel comfortable communicating. Respect privacy. Nobody, you know, don't always assume that you can share information that people tell you, right? When you're talking to somebody, not everybody wants their life broadcast to the world. Maybe somebody told you something, they vented to you, but it's important to clarify if they want you to act on something. I hear things every day, and I always make sure before I take action on this, take it to AWS, somebody else that I clarify, do you want me to act on this, or are you just venting to me? Asking questions. I mean, this really shows that you're generally interested. What do you like to do? What do you love about this community? Why is this community important to you? Why do you love your job? Tell me about jobs that you've had in the past. What do you wish you were doing? Asking questions really helps you to get to know others, and it actually shows that you're invested. And taking a chance. So for the newcomers, I think this can be really, really hard. It's hard to walk up to people. I remember the first time I walked up to Liz, and I kind of just felt a little embarrassed to, you know, come up and introduce myself. But you know, relationships start because somebody took a chance to invest in that relationship. And seek out ways to be there for others. Reaching out, how are you doing? Haven't heard from you in a long time. You know, it could just simply be a quick text, checking in on somebody, you know, seeing a project that they worked on. Maybe they had a really awesome blog post, and so you want to just reach out and say, hey, thank you for that. I learned this and this from you. I really appreciated that time. So people remember that, and it definitely helps to keep that relationship building. So I put this together as just my unofficial guide to building relationships. Hopefully this makes sense to some of you. But I do love this, be kind, be thoughtful, be genuine, and most of all, be thankful. And remember, this is a long game. Actually, really building connections with others is not going to happen overnight. You're not going to go to a meetup. It's not just going to be like now you're part of the community, everybody trusts you. It takes time. The relationships I have, that I've been investing in these relationships for years, and they're for years. So I do have a challenge, so like in the next week, I think somebody, just reach out to somebody. Maybe you heard something today at this talk. Maybe you want to say thank you to the organizers, but reach out. Don't expect anything in return. And I think lastly, I'd say just remember communities are transformative, right? By creating a network of, supporting individuals, by having genuine connections with others, it's really it benefits not just your career, by helping you to learn new ways to develop. Now we learned about eBPF and a little bit more about security. We learned from Jan about how to save time or how to save money, right? But also it helps you professionally. The world is changing, but our need to connect definitely remains. This was shared earlier by Massimo, but I created this because we want to hear from all of you. I work really closely with all the service teams at AWS, and we want to give the opportunity. So what's on the top of your wish list? What problems are you, having? It's a quick form, but we definitely are tracking this. We're going to make a report and send it back to the team. So if you have something that's blocking you, or you've been talking and tweeting or whatever, saying that this is on the top of your list and you want this from us, please let us know in this survey. And it's really short, I promise. There's only 2 required answers. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Please let me know if I could be reachable or helpful. That's also a QR code if you want to follow me on Twitter or connect with me on LinkedIn. I will make sure right at the end of the day that I go accept all the requests that I got today. And again, thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for taking the time. And thank you to Imre for inviting me back.
Thank you, Farah, for coming all the way from Portland to here. So
Portland, yes.
Yeah, people are coming 12-hour flights to be with us here.
Thanks.
Okay, so now it is lunchtime. It's on the first floor. We are having the lunch, and we will meet in an hour here. I forgot to ask people, do you have any questions for Farah? So sorry for this, for my excitement for lunch.
I mean, you can find me on lunch. I'll sit out there if you want. People are hungry.
Find her around, yeah.